Welcome to DT Faye Podcast. I'm Kate.
And I'm Elle.
Before we get into this week's book rec, we have to talk about Rebecca Yarros making the announcement on Good Morning America about the third book in the Empyrean series. It's going to be called Onyx Storm, and it's going to be released January 21st, 2025. So less than a year away.
That's 3 books in less than 2 years. I don't know. Sarah would never.
I know, and I'm torn because Sarah would never, because she is building these huge, complex worlds, and I don't know. I'm like, is the quality going to go down the quicker that she continues to put these books out?
Here's the thing. It depends if she has already outlined her plan for these books. Like if she's just writing as she comes up with it, may not be as good a quality versus, I don't know, if she's built this whole structure and then like woven it together into the stories. You know, like does she already have plans and expectations for each of the characters and like where it's supposed to go? Because otherwise, you know, then it doesn't always come together as well if there's not a greater plan.
And I really enjoyed Fourth Wing was one of our very early book recs, and it sucked me in immediately. There's enemies to lovers. It's like kind of Hunger Games like, and it has like the school setting that we like. So it's a little Zodiac Academy in that way, and you know, big battles and dragons. And I don't know. I really enjoyed Fourth Wing. I still enjoyed Iron Flame, not as much, I don't think, but I wasn't as disappointed as a lot of other people were, because some people really hated Iron Flame.
I haven't read it.
That's crazy. I can't.
I wasn't that in, like, I liked Fourth Wing. And if all the books were out, especially knowing what I've heard about Iron Flame, maybe I would have kept reading much faster, but
well, I will say that the world did not, like, the world building didn't exactly get better in the second book. It's still a little underdeveloped. And some of the characters in the relationships are a little underdeveloped if you're comparing it to someone like Sarah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's fair. But I'm interested to see where she goes, just based on, I don't want to spoil anything, but the end of Iron Flame is a pretty big cliffhanger.
Ooh.
Yeah, so, and Rebecca, when she was on, I say Sarah and Rebecca like they're just my good friends.
Obviously.
But she was on Good Morning America, and they asked her about the plot, and all she said was there will be politics, new adventures, old enemies, and of course, dragons. So that doesn't give a lot of the plot away.
It's very vague.
But
they are like interesting. Like she's hitting all the interest points when she uses those words. So,
well, in the title Onyx Storm, I've been obsessing over a little bit, and it made me think of 2 different things. One, Xaden's eyes are described using the word onyx several times, and based on how we left things with Xaden at the end of Iron Flame, I'm afraid that he's going to be the Onyx Storm that they're having to weather, and or it's going to be an internal storm for him, and we'll get a lot more of his POV and inner thoughts, because at the end of Iron Flame we do get a little bit of his POV. I won't say why, but
the fact that whatever you just said, I'm already like, what are you talking about? That's what I get for only reading the one book.
Well, and you could read it anytime. It's out now. I mean, I know it's going to be a long wait until the third one, but
yeah, it's in my Kindle.
I'm very interested to see. I know you're so lucky you go after me because I highlight
It's a real
everything.
blessing. Thank you.
But I'm interested to see how everyone reacts to what happened at the end of Iron Flame. And I'm also interested if Violet, I almost said violence, if Violet has a second signet, like a lot of people have speculated that she does. So there are a lot of options for like with time and with gravity and with amplifying other people's signets. That could go a lot of different ways. So if you have any like theories or thoughts on like what the next book will be about, or what Onyx and or Storm is represented, what it represents, or the signets or anything like that, message me on Instagram. Because I also thought, you know, she has lightning and he has shadows, so like together that's kind of an Onyx Storm. Like maybe it's like them together, they are the Onyx Storm. I don't know. Well, there's a lot of different ways that could go. So I'm interested.
Well, we'll have to do at least one of our theories, like do an episode before the new book about what our theories are.
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts, like Fantasy Fangirls have done a really great deep dive of that book series, but I do think it would be fun just to have one where we talk about like just all the different theories, especially about the signets and everything.
Yeah, maybe instead of
Violet's mom, who I'm.
I was gonna say maybe instead of a book rec, we can like go over this series again before the new book comes out.
Yeah, exactly. And I also got a really interesting message that, you know, we talked about Megan Fox, if she were cast in an SJM like movie or TV show, who she would be. And someone was like, have you ever considered Sophie Turner for Amarantha? And I was like, I haven't, but that is perfect. That is perfect casting. And like, I love when people send messages like that. Because I don't know how I had not considered her, but she would be a really good Amarantha.
I mean,
that like cruel, beautiful.
Her or oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank.
What was she in?
It's like Jessica Chastain. I'm just redhead.
Okay. Yeah,
they're both like very pretty redheads. I could see them having that cold.
I think you're missing
beauty.
One pretty redhead.
Are you an actress?
Are you not even considering?
Of course, you're on the same page as them. I'm just asking. Are you an actress?
I could be.
Up and coming.
I was in my senior play, and I was one of what is the fairy tale where she's asleep? Not Sleeping Beauty. Was it Sleeping Beauty?
You mean Snow White?
Maybe.
Like after she's the poisoned apple?
Godmothers. Was that Who
was
that? Sleeping Beauty?
Not what? Yes.
Okay. I was one of the fairy godmothers. I was the one that had the least amount of lines.
Oh, you were so cute, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You were great.
So I am an actress. I dabble. I dabble in acting.
You're doing great.
We are continuing our House of Flame and Shadow deep dive today with chapters 44 through 49. I did not make it through 50 because I had to go to Alabama. So I missed a full day of working on it. So we'll pick up next week with like 50 through 55. But first, let's share this week's book rec, which I don't know if you ended up loving, but we've talked about how you were reading it.
Yeah. So I'm going to do the book rec. I'm going to try to be respectful because this was like a big book talk, I guess, book that everybody really liked. So I would recommend it. I have some criticisms. Okay. It's the Shepherd King series by Rachel Gillig, which I guess everybody's probably seen the cover of the first book, The One Dark Window.
That's everywhere.
Yeah, I don't politely, I don't think I understand the hype. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed reading it, but I think that there's a lot of things that aren't well explained, and it's not like it's bad writing. It's good writing, but she does it as if she's telling a story, and she also has what are they called? I'm drawing a full blank. It's not helpful. There's it's like poetry, but like little.
Oh, I think I've seen.
Just drawing a blank on terms.
Haikus?
Yeah, well, like there's a lot in there, and
like prose.
Yeah, and just drawing a full blank. It's not this hard, guys. Sorry, but she tells a story, and it's a good story. If I was like telling you something, but there's a lot of details that she just doesn't give.
Okay.
So like it takes a while to fully understand what's happening in the story. And there's things about the world and the magic that it wouldn't hurt the story to have explained to me. Or like the book opens and your character is walking down an abandoned dark lane. She's meeting up with her cousin. And there's nothing to really describe anything around her. You don't know what she looks like for like the first part of the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just there's not. It's like she's just telling an overall story. So there's not necessarily, I want to know what I'm looking at. I'm very visual. And then I threw my phone across the room because I read Kindle app on my phone.
I don't know how you read like long term on your phone.
Well, I have a Kindle, but then I don't know. It didn't stay charged as long as it got older, and I could hold so much more on my phone on the app anyway. But yeah, I just read it on my phone. But I literally threw it when the sex scene happened because it was so vague and nondescriptive. And
like a cutaway or just juvenile?
Like it was kind of cutaway, but like vague words about love and being, or like intimacy and being together and happiness. And then at one point, as she's like reaching orgasm, she's describing a crumbling window. And I was like, what the actual fuck are you talking about?
You're trying too hard to
she kind of like edges you out with this like sexual tension. So That's my like vent about the book. But as I discuss the actual series, there are a lot of interesting plot points. I just feel like I'm left with more questions.
Okay.
So I know nothing about the outside world. The whole book is about one kingdom, or the whole series is about one kingdom. So there is a deity. This is where I'm going to try not to mess up explaining this magic because it's also kind of weird.
That's
Not
how I
quite
felt
clear.
about Fourth Wing, like the magic system and the world. I was like, can I see a map? Can I see a list of the signets?
Yeah.
I'm struggling.
Well, fortunately, there's no world. You just know this one kingdom.
Okay.
And there's this deity, and since they don't discuss the rest of the world, I guess she's just the deity for their kingdom. I'm like, why isn't she bothered with everybody else? Why is she just focusing on you guys? So, like 500 years before our book takes place, you have this deity called the Spirit of the Wood who has magic, and so the local townsfolk, like people, would come to, I guess, kind of pray to her or like barter with her, and kind of like they used to do with the Greek gods. They would bring gifts to honor them in order to be blessed. And the one thing about the magic in this book that makes sense is that there needs to be balance. So she, like they would barter something, they would give her something, and then she would like bestow something on them in return. And the king at the time, he was called the Shepherd King. He wanted to create a way so that there could be more magic for others to use without there having to be a cost, because she might gift you some magic, but it'll come with a bite at the end because it has to be balanced. So like you might get beauty, but your heart turns cold, so like it's never just like you're getting a great gift. There's going to be something else with it. So he's trying to find a way that people don't have to lose anything to receive the gift. And she's like working with him on it. Like he's bartering things of himself to help create this method to share the magic. But eventually he barters away most of himself. Like, I forgot one of the things for like protection, he ends up like giving up his ability to sleep.
Jeez.
I know. It's like one of the last things that he like gives up is his soul. But
wow.
I know. But so the way he's decided to help share this magic is with a deck of cards. So there's actually like 78 cards
this is really complicated.
Yeah. There's like 78 cards total that are created. There's 12 of one type of card, 11 of another, 10 of another, 9 of another. Like, so, they have like, I don't know, 8 black horse cards. And when you use the magic of the card, you get the strength of a horse, the strength and the speed of a horse. Like, okay, that's great for soldiers. Like, but there's only 8 of these cards or whatever.
Like total in the entire, there can only
in
be
the
8?
Entire kingdom. So like, obviously, once you have the cards, you have power, and people become obsessed with these cards.
If you lose the card, do you lose that power? Like,
yeah, but no. So like, that's a side note, like how to use the power. Like you literally just tap the card 3 times and you activate the power, and you tap it 3 more times and turn it off. But anybody can take it from you. It has no loyalty. But so people, long story short, people stopped coming to see the Spirit of the Wood to, I guess, worship her, because they can get magic elsewhere technically for free without having to give anything. So she gets spiteful and she creates this mist that literally locks everybody in. So
that's why they don't know about the outside.
I don't know if anybody ever leaves because there's not enough information in the books, but most people are basically trapped. And if you go into the mist, she will kill you. That's her balance for taking back for her magic. So they create these little charms to protect them in the mist. But so overall, they want to be able to defeat the mist. And that's kind of like the premise of the book, is they're all searching for a way to defeat the mist, and they know how. What else? There was something else I was going to mention with that.
Is the main character, like, what's special about her? I'm assuming she's...
This is another big thing that is not explained, which is why I don't understand why everybody's so excited about it. People are not born with magic. You don't have magic unless you have a very specific infection.
Infection?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't know where it comes from. Don't know how it spreads. I think it is, quote, gifted to you by the Spirit of the Wood before the cards were in play. But this is 500 years ago. By now, in our present day, if you have the infection, you are killed as a child. And if anybody is found protecting somebody with an infection, their family is killed too.
So let me guess. She had the infection and somehow slipped through?
Of course.
Of course.
But so like the infection, the whole thing about having it is that eventually once you survive the infection, you have magic of your own. Although it is degenerative. So people are still dying and going crazy. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a great explanation. This is a long drawn out explanation.
Well, no, it's like I can understand like the foundation, I guess, of the world and the story. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm interested.
So I mean, she wants to
read.
They want to save somebody that's dying because of after effects from the infection. They also want to get rid of the mist. People are being persecuted, and the magic doesn't really make sense. And
what
so
about
we're on this journey.
What's
he's somebody else that's fighting to protect some of those that are infected secretly.
Is it like enemies to lovers?
No.
Like forced proximity? Or just
I wouldn't say they're kind of like on the same page.
Okay.
And fighting for the same thing.
Is he just human? Like, is he just like a guy?
I mean, he's secretly infected.
Oh,
okay. No, spoiler.
Spoiler, they're both special.
So like, I'm currently reading the second book and I'm kind of getting annoyed. I don't know if I'll finish it. I just want to know what happens.
I don't have that in me to not finish it. Even when I'm not enjoying a book, I'll not only finish it, but I'll finish
You'll
the
read
series.
more books afterwards
I will.
too.
I
Like,
don't know why. Because
I get too frustrated.
I feel like it's like when I get my hair cut and she turns me around and I'm like, I love it. And I don't, it's like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. It's like, I somehow think the author's going to be like, this person didn't finish.
Yeah. So after all that long, I don't not recommend it because it's an interesting story. And you're like, what is happening? Is this going to bring somebody back? How's this going to fix? Like, I have a lot of questions and I was on the edge of my seat because I was like, oh my God, is she slowly disappearing? Like, there's so many things to it, but I don't understand why the hype, because I think it gives just as many questions as answers. And then there's a lot that's like vague or not explained. And I'm like, why does everybody love this?
Very interesting what becomes popular and what doesn't, because there are some books I think that deserve a lot more hype. Then there are books like that are all over. Like, everyone's like, if you loved ACOTAR or if you loved all of these books, you're going to love this.
Oh yeah. And there's absolutely like the smut, again, like I said, was so bad. That one actually made me mad. I was like, are you kidding? You've been streaming this long and this is it? So,
there's no payoff.
Yeah, no, you're not reading it for sex. Let me just tell you that now.
Well, I'll probably, I don't know. It's been on my TBR for a while and it might just stay there permanently.
Well, I had to fucking pay for the book to read it. It wasn't one I could like rent.
That's even more annoying. It's not like Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, so I've got it if you want to read it.
What are you going to read next? You have to read Bride next, actually. You don't have a choice.
Okay, you're right, because I need some smut to make me feel better about how mad I am for how that went.
Nodding.
Okay, I will allow it.
Well, chapter 44 picks up with Ithan using those sunball reflexes to keep him from dropping figurines in Jessica's office.
How's that going? Wait, he was a sunball player?
I know. It's shocking every time.
Wow, it's like literally all he's got. Ithan is working as Jessica's assistant in exchange for her help in finding a necromancer to bring back Sigrid, a wolf that he barely knew, but he has decided that she should be prime based on the fact that she is simply a Fendir.
And last week we talked about how similar Fenris and Fendir are, and I've been kind of obsessing over it. Like, if a ham can spiral, so can I. So I did some research into the names, and I found, how would you say that? Fenrir, a mythological wolf who plays a key role during the events of Ragnarok, which is something we've talked about a lot. And he is foretold to assist in the setting the world aflame, resulting in the collapse of humanity and society and killing Odin.
Wow.
I know, big. And I'm adding also that I thought of when I was thinking about Fenris is Moonbeam and Moonwood are kind of, I don't know, like could be a little bit connected. And there's also, we've talked about Ragnarok several times and the potential connection to Sarah's new series that we don't know that much about other than the name or, the speculation of the name Twilight of the Gods.
That's exciting.
Is Ragnarok.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if there's like a bigger picture with like Fenris and Fendir, and I don't know.
I don't want to be let down, but I really hope so, because that does. God, please bring back Fenris.
Well, exactly.
But I want to know more.
He was one of the characters. I feel like most characters got a pretty satisfying ending, and I wasn't satisfied with his. Yeah. And I would love to see him again, and I would also love to know about like the gods that Avallen trapped. Like, are those the Twilight of the Gods? Are those the gods? Like, where are they?
Well, I want to know more about Avallen. I know she wrapped up that series, but if he could if he could be in something moving forward and just tell us about how they're doing. Yeah. I just want to know how everything kind of I don't want to
spoil, like I don't want it to be like a jump the shark moment where they're brought back and then we're unhappy with their story. Even if it's like a cameo, like if it's like Az and Nesta being in Flame and Shadow, like just, something.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be big. Just give us something.
Oh my God, just let me know that they're together and married. Like I'm thinking of
They
Adie
are.
and Lysandra.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just like let me know that these other characters, like just like a hint about how things went.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Jessica gets a call, and on her way out, she tells Ithan to grab the loaded Godslayer rifle, the gun that Bryce used to kill Micah way back in House of Earth and Blood.
Ithan follows Jessica into a chamber, and this is another thing I'm probably reading into too much, but there are stalactites and stalagmites that he's noticing, and I can't remember what they're called specifically, but they do look like icicles. Like it's a weird moment where he looks over and he's like, there's a lot of stalagmites. And I don't know, it made me think that it could be a little bit of foreshadowing for Ithan. Is that something?
I don't know. I'm not sure where you're going with that one. I'll have to ask you offside. Oh.
Well, like icicles.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
It
was just, I was like, why was this pointed out? Why did he look over and note that there are stalagmites? Just to let us know that they're in a cave or like a chamber underground?
Yeah, I guess to make you feel like you're really deep underground.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, now that I know it took me a minute to process what you're referencing. I'm like, oh, maybe.
It's just something I highlighted, whenever you go back and reread.
Yeah, and I have not done a reread. I'm doing this with you, so potentially. At the center of the crowd is the astronomer who points at Ithan and says, "You're dead, thief." Prove it.
Prove it.
The astronomer is a character we met in Sky and Breath who Bryce, Ithan, and Therion visited to try to make contact with Connor via his mystics.
That shit went sideways, and first they ended up talking to Thanatos. He's another character that we have not seen the last of, and I kind of really like he's one of my favorite characters.
He was the most honest.
He was the most honest, like with Apollyon and Adis, especially, not as much Adis. Apollyon, the more we learn about him, the more villain he is.
He's very gray.
But Thanatos is like, I want to eat you. Like, he's very upfront.
Let me just clear this up right now.
Yeah.
Just want your soul.
So first that happened. They're trying to find Connor. They find a prince of hell. And then Ithan ends up freeing the Fendir heir that he finds as a mystic, and also the sprites and a dragon, Ariadne. So there's several things that the astronomer is
He could be there to be mad about a lot. Back in the Depth Charger, Bryce, Hunt, Rune, Flynn, and Deck are preparing for their trip to Avallen to visit the archives.
Avallen.
What did I say? Avalon? Close enough. Excuse me, Avallen. Because they want to visit the archives and the Cave of Princes in an attempt to learn about this portal to nowhere that the Autumn King has mentioned to Bryce.
You know what's confusing to me about Avallen is,
What?
I want to say
It's not Avalon?
that too. But the Avallen, I always want to put, I can't, it's like Avallen Island, not the Avallen Islands or something. It's a weird, I don't know.
That makes me think of Game of Thrones, where they some kind of islands they talk about, Iron Islands or something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, Therion is pouting because he's confined to the ship and he's not allowed to go with his friends.
Confined. Major FOMO.
We hear more about the murder twins, Morven's sons, who tried to kill Rune, Deck, and Flynn in the Cave of Princes during Rune's ordeal that ended with our Shadow Daddy claiming the Star Sword from Peleus's tomb.
The twins can read minds. That's really creepy. And they're not going to ask for permission like that Night Court dude.
I love, Reese would hate that, the Night Court dude, but I love that's how
dude.
they refer to it. Bryce plans to go straight to the archives, but the Mists always tell Morven everything, so bypassing him isn't exactly an option. And there's the whole no girls allowed in the archives or the cave part. Hunt's like, don't worry, I'm sure she has a plan. She'll spring on us in the worst possible moment, which is very Rowan and Aelin.
Yes.
I love that he's kind of accepted that. Except later in this chapter, we do learn that Bryce doesn't actually have some big secret plan beyond just dangling the Autumn King's notebook in front of Morven.
And hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Plus, when they ask why she'd need to go into a cave for research, she gives a non-answer because it's where the Star Sword was held. Okay. Flynn, who I constantly forget actually has magic, says it's his magic that's unhappy when he's in Avallen.
It's a small moment, but it is something to remember once we get onto the island and learn a little bit more about its history.
Yeah. Deck said... I just said that was so weird. Deck says they should split up Scooby-Doo style. leading to Team Archives, which is Rune, Flynn, and Deck, and Team Caves, which is Bryce, Hunt, and Baxian.
Which team would you be on? Where would you choose to go? Archives or Caves?
Probably Archives.
Really? I would be Caves.
Look,
I'm too like.
I've seen The Descent, and there's
that's a good point.
Look, I know they have
That
magic, but
movie
I'm
is
not.
horrifying.
I know this is a different world, but I don't like it. It creeps me out. So like I would go, but if I have the option for Archives.
It depends who's on what team also, because like I want to be with the sexiest people. Where are the sexy people going?
Okay, well that definitely, I don't want to have sex in a cave versus in a library, you know?
Yeah.
There's just sexier options there.
Also, it's not the greatest plan having the only people who have been into the caves on Team Archives, but they explain they spent most of the time running around the mist, which is hilarious just a picture. Because the mist try to confuse you, which reminds me of Black Dagger Brotherhood, because they have those mists around the castle or mansion that they live in that confuses people, like they get lost.
Yeah, especially humans.
And Sarah, she was a big J.R. Ward fan, so I wondered if she was a little inspired by that.
Yeah.
But so they were running around basically in circles, is what I'm picturing, the caves, and they were being chased by the murder twins, Cormac and the ghouls, which it is very Scooby-Doo picturing.
Yeah, minus the ghouls.
So they didn't memorize anything, and he says, we didn't get to memorize the carvings throughout the caves and the burial chamber.
Also based on our history with Rune, if he even looked at the carvings, so
he's not going to remember.
He's not paying attention.
Ask questions.
But interesting. Carvings in caves. Interesting. Mist.
Exactly. It all sounds very familiar. And it goes back to Bryce being like, I just want to see it because that's where the sword is. Like, sure, Jan.
Yeah. Nobody else is putting it together yet, though. Our first surprise guest is Lydia, who's joining the group thanks to the Ocean Queen, and she'll cease protecting her son. Oh, sorry. I read that wrong. Just busted. Our first surprise guest is Lydia, who's joining the group thanks to the Ocean Queen. And the Ocean Queen says she will cease protecting her sons if she doesn't resume her work as Agent Daybright, which is really sad.
It's really sad. Specifically, the Ocean Queen wants Lydia to figure out how to stop Rigelus's new mech suits, because they no longer require a pilot to operate, which is terrifying, and they're stationed atop Mount Herman. But Lydia's convinced her there's nothing she can do. It's not like Lydia can just go there by herself and destroy all the suits. Like, it's not
like
possible.
What magic do you think I have that I can fight a mech suit that doesn't even need a pilot? Yeah.
She would need an army. But it is important to remember that these suits don't need a pilot. They're going to be empty, and that they need an army.
And those are the suits that they were trying to destroy at the end of the other book. So
and
that's really sad.
She has convinced the Ocean Queen that her time is better spent spying on Bryce. And I do love that she's very upfront of like, I'm going to spy on you. And Bryce is like, okay.
Wink, if you must. Bryce and Lydia visit the sprites, the ones who burned down the meat market and caused the bounty on Therion's head from the Viper Queen.
They are not apologetic either.
No, and I think we've talked about it before, but I do feel bad that they're like having to cower on a ship underwater because they're literally
Bravo. They love reality TV.
I mean, yes, but they're also made of fire. So one leak and they're doomed. Lydia informs the triplets that their queen Erithis is free, but they aren't sure where she is. All they know is that she was going to a stronghold of the sprites.
Which is why they need the triplets to find her and advocate for Midgard, convince the queen to join the fight again. When the triplets question whether sprites can actually make a difference in this war, especially given what happened last time, Bryce points out that Lily made a difference in the fight against Micah. Maybe I'm just feeling emotional because I had that abdominal massage earlier today. I had this massage. I don't know. For those of you who've been following, I stopped birth control, and it's been a real journey. And my latest attempt is I did this. It's called abdominal therapy, but it's a stomach massage. And she was like, you store a lot of emotions and feelings
have you been releasing
in your hips? And I was like, that sounds like bullshit.
Is that because your ovaries are around there?
I don't know. I mean, I guess. But she did this thing where she was like rocking my hips. Because she was like, if you start crying, it's okay. And I was like, don't count on it. And she started rocking my hips. And I was like, feeling I didn't cry. I decided, I guess because I pushed everything down, it makes sense that that's where it's living.
I have seen TikTok has been following me with random posts of people doing emotional Pilates and stretches that are release feelings. And I'm like,
yeah. So she was shaking my hips up and shaking my emotions up.
They
I
are.
pushed it. Don't worry, I pushed it right back down.
Thank you. I'm not ready.
But when I got to that part about Lily, it made me really sad.
Yeah.
'Cause
I mean,
that's one
she
of those
made a very
characters
big
that
difference.
I really wanted. I'm not going to say that the book doesn't end like this, but my ideal ending was like a Starfall where we see all these characters like finding their peace, and I just
Oh, how cool would that be?
I know I
Or
really
at least
wanted
just
that for
seeing their
Lily.
souls.
Yeah.
Well, with that, they promise to find Arithis and they fight with Bryce when the time comes. Bryce checks in with Lydia, who is still healing physically, still destroyed emotionally, and is yet again going to be separated from her kids.
You know, Bryce has handled Agent Day's identity really well, like especially compared to her brother. And she seems really genuine when she tells Lydia that like she's there for her if Lydia ever needs to talk. And I don't know. I know that we have had our issues with Rune and how he was so surprised that an undercover agent for the Asteri was someone that worked with the Asteri.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what to do with Bryce sometimes because sometimes she's immediately understanding of other women and very supportive, which I love that. Sometimes she's a little bit like short-sighted, but in this, I feel like she sees Lydia well.
Well, she's almost handling Lydia's trauma a little bit better than Hunt's.
It's not fair, but it feels like maybe because she's a little bit removed from Lydia.
Yeah.
She's not as emotionally attached, so it's easier for her to be supportive because it's not weighing on her so heavily, I guess.
Yeah.
Lydia needs and deserves support and friendship with no strings attached. Every relationship that she's ever had has been a strategic one or it's been fake.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Lydia doesn't even know how to process or like respond to someone being genuine, like
somebody giving support without expecting something. Yeah.
Lydia has come out of this my favorite character of this entire series.
Yeah.
Like I mean, even more so than Lysandra, like she's just given so much and deserves so much. And
I was kind of harsh about Lydia in the beginning because I was like, oh, okay, just, abuse him when they were all down in the dungeons.
We live
but
and we learn.
I really support her now.
Yeah.
I just had to see more. I had to learn more.
Finally alone, you might be thinking Hunt and Bryce are finally going to have sex, or maybe they'll at least talk. They have a lot of issues that they need to talk through, but you are wrong about both things because they decide to hold each other.
Boring.
Which is so boring. I was like, finally, like at least they can fuck it out. At least they can
discuss the damage they did to each other in their conversation we discussed last week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
the trauma fight that they both had.
I would rather them like fuck it out than fight it out, but we get neither. They just hold each other.
Yeah.
But they're both in their own heads, like, acknowledging that there's still a lot of issues, but
I mean, I'm glad that they're both grateful, but there's more to come, so I feel like you need to use the time you have.
But I'm not thrilled with what was to come either, so.
Also that. Back in the House of Flame and Shadow, Ithan is squaring off against the astronomer until the necromancer that we've all been waiting for, Hypaxia, gasp, didn't see that coming, arrives.
You're probably wondering why we didn't use her title, Hypaxia, Queen of the Valbaran Witches.
Well, that's because something we got hints of in the House of Sky and Breath, the unrest with the witches, finally came to a head, and Hypaxia's mother's second in command, Morganthia Dragus, staged a coup.
I believe that's a badass name, first of all.
Morganthia, but Dragus? I like that the last name is mentioned.
I believe we learned about Morganthia in Therion's bonus chapter. So there's probably a lot of people who are like, who are you talking about? But you didn't forget anything. Morganthia was Hecuba's general and both Hecuba and Hypaxia's second in command.
And now she's the queen of the Valbaran witches.
We also talked about Morganthia sounding like Morrigan. So I won't go on to one of my tangents about like Mor being a witch because you know how I feel. To escape the executioners, Hypaxia now has to swear fealty to the House of Flame and Shadow, which is the house of her father, which is where she gets her necromancy gifts.
It's all coming together, finally.
They're all coming together like in the same place eventually. And it's finally like we had all of these threads that just went out in all these different directions.
Well, we've been introduced to so many characters in the last few books. Some of them died. Some of them died immediately, which was disappointing. And I'm just glad that the rest are coming back into play. Because otherwise you're like, why did I learn about her and I haven't seen her?
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of characters that I'm like, why did we spend time on, say, Sophie? Like there's some characters that I'm like, why did we spend time on this for it to go nowhere?
Yeah.
And I even feel like that with Hypaxia. I don't know. like overall.
Well, I'm glad that she's come back around. I hope that means something more.
Yeah.
Back on the depth charger, Lydia is going to try the whole meeting with her sons thing one more time before she leaves for Avallen.
And that definitely isn't going to help with her son's abandonment issues. It's not like she has a choice. She has to leave to keep them safe again. But if you're, two kids who have watched your mother leave and you don't really understand why, and she comes back and then she leaves again, it doesn't help anything.
No.
Especially with Ace, who again is like the more angry and aggressive one, and Bran is the one who's a little more open to talking to her. Like, he has questions. They both have questions, but Bran is willing to ask them.
Right. Ace is still angry.
Mm-hmm. He asks why she left them there, and Lydia explains it was for their safety, but she's thought about them every day since.
Yeah, again, she also can't tell them that the Ocean Queen forced her to go back and...
That the Ocean Queen is the actual villain.
Yeah, well, because that's where they live. So you don't want them to be in fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard for Lydia too, I'm sure. Lydia pulls the ruby ring from her finger and gives the heirloom from her father's house. Okay, got that little tidbit there. The heirloom from her father's house to the boys, telling them it's valuable both in terms of money and sentimentality.
And because we've gone over this before about Bran and the ruby ring and the father's house and the stag and everything. We won't do that every single episode.
But we're thinking about it.
We're thinking about that timeline. We'll talk about it more when they the big reveal of, Bran, what that stands for. But yeah, it is. I do love little moments like this, but it opens it up to so many questions.
Well, at least she's making sure if anything happens, it's still going to be passed down through the actual bloodline, which is nice.
Bran thanks Lydia for giving them their adoptive parents, and he wishes her good luck wherever she's going. He jabs Ace with an elbow, and so he's like, bye. And
Genuine.
Lydia leaves her boys not knowing if she will ever see them again. And these Lydia scenes were emotionally wrecking me.
I felt so bad for Lydia.
Mm-hmm.
The more we learn, the more I'm like, God, that's brutal.
It is.
And she's trying so hard to do and be more. Hypaxia explains how she was dethroned to Ithan and Jespa, who is disappointed and disgusted that she gave up the cloudberry crown instead of fighting for it.
The cloudberry crown sounds kind of silly.
Cloudberry, I just immediately see this fluffy pink.
I know. Well, in knowing the Throne of Glass witches, that's not it. You can't be a doormat and expect to be the queen.
But also you're a necromancer, so I just kind of expected...
They were scared of her, I thought, and now it's she's actually too weak.
Yeah. Well... It's like an emotional weakness because it's not like she wasn't strong magically. She just, I don't know. I thought
she doesn't flex it.
I thought she had all this training to rule, So you have to know that there are times to push back, and I think that she didn't.
Especially with the witches, you just can't get away with not being strong.
She also knew they were plotting against her, so I'm like, you don't have to plot back, but you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Anyway, a little bit disappointed. Morganthia's first act as queen was to order Hypaxia's execution. And
because she's strong. That's a strong leader. That's what you do when you
become... Yeah, you can't let her be there to build a rebellion. And her second was to undo Hypaxia's mother's animation spell for Pax's ghost tutors. Now she's also lost her little friends.
Well, her little ghost friends. But she seems more upset about the tutors than losing her mother's crown and legacy and leaving her people with an unhinged queen. And I think that's kind of what Jessica is really disgusted by, is that, she's pouting about her ghost tutors, and Jessica's like, you just left all the witches with this crazy bitch.
But also you were given an opportunity and you were trained for it. And I don't know, maybe that Hypaxia grew up too isolated.
Yeah. Jessica says that. She's like, your mom did you a disservice. There had to have been some sort of middle ground, because I think her being away from the witches with her tutors had it she has a lot of good qualities because of that, but then it also she didn't. I don't want to say brutality, but she didn't grow up in that.
We also don't know what kind of socialization she really had. So to put her at the top of a very important social hierarchy, I don't think she's prepared to handle it.
Well,
even not even the politics, just to be around other people, to have people trying to stab you in the back. She's not used to any of it.
And
She's just had her little
has
friends.
Any allies, because she didn't grow up you didn't grow up to make friends, and you that's when you would make alliances, is when you're growing up around these people, and she just comes in and expects them to accept her as queen.
Well, and she doesn't know how to cultivate it either. She just knows how to do this one thing. It's just her mother did set her up for failure there. Yeah.
I
It's
do
kind of
remember,
sad.
like, I can't remember if it was the first book or the second book deep dive when I was convinced that Irene from Throne of Glass was going to be one of the ghost tutors
Yeah.
because I way overthought everything.
Well, you're not necessarily wrong. Sarah just never told us the truth.
Maybe
She could have
I
been.
would love for that to come back up and it be somebody we know.
Gosh, I wish. That would be really cool.
I think so. Hypaxia promises to try to help Ithan because, of course, Ithan is like, I'm really sorry to hear about that. I need you to bring, like, he's
Oh, you have nowhere to
so
go?
entitled
Let me give
and
you something to do.
selfish. But after she swears her oath to the Underking, who was, if you remember, in Sky and Breath on the autumnal
You did great.
equinox, that the Underkings kind of set up like a little word mark, like an obstacle course. Like, remember, she had to go through, and he was impressed enough that when she comes there, he's like, yeah, you can join the House of Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
So that's what she's there to do because she really has nowhere else to go.
Thank you so much.
But also, she spent this entire time telling the witches, like, I'm earth and blood through and through. I'm not House of Flame and Shadow. And it's like,
Well, I got to do something. After she leaves, Jespa spills the tea on Hypaxia and Celestina to Ithan, who has had no idea that the witch and Archangel were secretly in a relationship, and that ended when Celestina betrayed Bryce and told the Asteri that she was heading for the Eternal City.
It's a little gossipy. She's like, oh, you didn't know?
How did you? But she knows she wanted to tell him because Bryce would have been like, what do you mean? Tell me more.
Ithan asked why Jessica defected from the witches long before Hecuba was queen. Like the Fae, they've been in decline for generations, a magical and moral rot. And I guess that's because of the parasite. We talked about the implications or the effects of them being separated from, like, if they're three-faced goddess and Throne of Glass, if they're like separated, if that's affecting their magic. But now I'm not sure if it's the parasite.
I could see it being that, but also because they're still trying to gain the Asteri's favor. So, like, the Asteri's given them just a little bit of power or whatever to keep them, like, fighting for. So, like, they've got them all distracted by whatever this is. And they've forgotten about, like, where they came from and who they should be.
Well, where did they come from? Did they come through? Like we've talked about, we don't know anything about the witches if they existed on Midgard before the crossing from either Prithian or from the other world.
Were they like, because the Ocean Queen says that this world had magic. It might have been natural, but the Asteri didn't appreciate it. But were they humans with a little bit of natural magic that the Asteri gave power to in order to earn their favor?
Did the Asteri breed what the natural magic was there into modern day witches?
I mean, they created the angels, so they could easily have done that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I have so many questions about the witches.
I do too. I have so many questions about, and so does Ithan, like us and Ithan. And he gets even more backstory from Jessica this time, and we find out how Jessica and Adis became friends because at the end of House of Earth and Blood, we were very shocked when they kind of met up at, I think it was the prologue, where they, no, wait, what is it, epilogue?
Yeah.
Where they met up on a bench and they were kind of talking about who we come to figure out later on is Thea, but it's clear that they have some sort of relationship.
Yeah. They chatted like they've been dealing with whatever's been going on for a long time.
With the cat.
Yeah. After she was cursed, Apollyon heard Jespa had developed powers and sent his brother Adis to investigate and kill her if she was a threat.
I mean, everything I learn about Apollyon makes me question him being Midgard's savior because he sounds like a real asshole.
It's just so focused. What does he know? What does he think he knows that he's so worried about and consumed by?
It goes back to like the Parthos in the books and him being obsessed with like what the power is and not like being able to understand or comprehend that knowledge is power.
It makes you wonder if there was some sort of prophecy about his end or demise because it was who cares about a library? It's a very targeted attack. And there's something very specific that he was looking for and didn't find. I just have more questions about what it is too.
He just seems kind of petty.
Yeah, also that. Well, Adis reported back that Jespa is to be respected and left alone, and Apollyon actually listened.
I know. I'm surprised. It does seem like for all of Apollyon's faults, he loves his brothers and he like really listens to Adis.
He respects what Adis had to say, but he also was like, all right, but just check in on her every once in a while, please.
Yeah. Back to Jessica paying Ithan's debt to the astronomer because she's like, add it to my monthly bill. And that's because for years, she has been paying the astronomer, that old creepy fuck, to try to find a way to undo the Prince of the Pit's grip on her soul.
That's fair. I mean, if you have that kind of money and this is really important.
Monthly?
Yeah, but that's a long time for him not to have like figured this out. Should we still be paying him?
I'd have to put it on hiatus for
maybe it's not worth it. Because dragonfire is one of the few things that can harm a prince of hell. Jespa originally sought him out to buy Ariadne, but when the astronomer wouldn't sell her, she settled for using his mystics to hunt in hell for ways to free her. Bonus, the astronomer wants to find the answer so he himself might become young again.
It's a very, like, that's another fairy tale-esque storyline of, like, he just wants to be young again. He's, like, searching for eternal youth.
Well, at least it might motivate him.
And you're not like most wolves, Jessica tells Ithan. And she,
wow.
I know, thanks. She thinks back to the first wars, and it was the wolf packs that were led by the Asteri-bred bloodhounds who reached Parthos first, and they started slaughtering and burning. So, thanks, but also, like, yikes.
That was also 15,000 years ago. And, like, it's not perfect, but some people evolve. Like, okay.
Well, and you remember, I think Danica and Jessica had a bit of a strained relationship, so I don't think
Oh, yeah. Well, because Danica was lying and coming and, like, sneaking around her books. So I pissed her off.
So I can't bring myself to like Danica as a character.
No.
I can't. Like, thinking about the video where, you know, her and Bryce are like hanging out and Bryce goes to another room and
she's immediately
Danica
like
jumps up and grabs a book
around.
and it's like, it just, none of it felt genuine.
No.
I don't know.
It just, yeah. And you know what? Maybe she was doing the right thing, but that doesn't mean that she was like a fun person.
Yeah, and
you can be good, but not be. I don't have to like you.
When the prime is like, Danica trusted you the most. Like, what?
Thanks.
Obviously not.
But also, the bloodhound gift, the one that Danica inherited from Mordock, was bred into the lines.
Lines like the Fendirs, which explains why they've remained dominant for generations. Because I guess before that, with wolf packs, it wouldn't be one family for this long. You know, like, they have bred it to where they have this line that was listening to them, or I guess, I don't know. But Danica ended up not being like Sabine. So she wasn't happy just blindly doing the Asteri's bidding, and that's why they ordered Micah to kill her.
Well, side note, genetics doesn't work that way. You know, there's dominant and recessive traits.
Don't tell Scientology that.
That's a whole other... Anyway, it doesn't work like that, so it doesn't make sense that one family would stay powerful. Like, eventually things are going to go up and down.
Like, do you remember you obviously had way more advanced classes than this, but just in high school when they would be like, okay, the dad has this color eyes.
Oh, those are my favorite, the Punnett squares.
I'd be like, I don't fucking know.
Oh God, I had a whole course on genetics.
No, I would
got
just
real boring
guess.
after a while. But anyway, I don't know. It doesn't
doesn't
quite add up without the Asteri being involved. Ethan asks why Connor's soul has remained untouched in the bone quarter.
Because Connor is important to Bryce and to you. Mostly to the plot.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, so?
But also you. And Ethan's like, but I'm nobody.
Well.
And because Jessica kind of gives him a look like, are we going to fucking keep doing this?
Because every time he's like,
it is.
Nobody.
But I'm nobody. But then he's also entitled.
It's a whole other problem.
And Jessica is like, she's trying to push him towards the direction because he's like, yeah, she's a Fendir, so she needs to be prime. And she's like, was that right?
You know, Jessica's so annoyed. She's like, I have given you everything you need. Please stop. Without me directly spelling it out.
Before he can like figure it out, they're called to the morgue to meet Hypaxia, who has finished her vows to the Underking in record time, which I guess is good. It's pointed out a couple times that like she finished her. I don't even know. They didn't explain the oath, like what that entails.
Yeah, why is it so fast? Why does that matter?
Is she just reading really fast?
Neat. Congratulations. The depth charger gets as close as it can to the mist that's guarding Avallen, which stretches from the sea all the way up past the clouds. Side note, I just immediately got a visual of oh my gosh, what was that series we watched that was based on books? Why did my brain just stop working?
Game of Thrones?
No.
Oh, Shadow and Bone.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Oh my God.
The mist that the like monsters hide.
Yeah,
in.
sorry guys, my brain is fully shut off today, and like a lot of words are not coming to me. But like, you know, like when you see it visually, they have like those mists go all the way up to the sky.
It's like expanding. You know, I'm really
kind of creepy, but that's exactly what I saw. like
Yeah.
all across the water.
I'm very disappointed that they decided not to make another season of that because the story was a little segmented. Like they could have made them into separate series or just focused on one of the storylines. But I mean, I liked it.
Yeah, this probably is another thing that people would want to debate. But if they just kept the Six of Crows out of it, I would have been happy to keep watching.
Right, and those are good books, like good
I just
series
didn't
too.
see how they really meshed. But yeah, sorry we don't get to see more of it.
I know. I'm very disappointed.
But anyway, so we're pulling up to the mist. It may not continue under the water, but a barrier as solid as stone does, which is scary.
And they aren't wards like the way that we understand wards, but they're naturally occurring, which is really interesting. Because it's like, what's on this island that is creating this barrier?
Yeah, I would not be excited about plunging through it because I don't know what kind of danger I'd be getting into.
I know, I'd like be holding my breath.
Like, are we good here? Once Splin and Deck arrive late, thanks to finding the waffle station on the ship.
They're so goofy sometimes.
I mean, at least it's honest.
Like waiting to go into this, and they're being very serious. And they're like, "Sorry, we're late. Have you guys seen the waffle station?
We need a solid breakfast." Bryce uses the Star Sword to open a triangle of a door, like the one in the cave in Prythian, and a white boat with a stag's head appears, and King Morven's voice welcomes her.
That reminds me of something. I can't think of what series it makes me think of where the voice is like coming out of. I don't know. It's a very good visual. Like, yeah. I love that.
And that triangle, especially since it's a triangle door that's if she had any questions that maybe she wasn't in the right place, since it's just like what she saw in the caves in Prythian.
So it makes me think, does she actually need Morven to let her in? Because it sounds like would the mist actually tell on her? She's starborn. It seems like the mist would belong more to her than to Morven.
Well, it almost seems like the boat was just waiting. So I don't know if she needs him to let her in, but can he close the door that she just opened? Mm-hmm. So maybe.
I don't know.
And I mean, he's not really actually welcoming her. He's just saying that he's been expecting her for a long time via the stag's mouth.
Therion, who has been put on house arrest by the Ocean Queen herself, is pouting, watching his friend. Like, I just picture him like kicking the air, being like, I want to go. And so they all board the boat. And then without a single thought in his head, he just jumps down and he's like, go, go, go.
God, I would be so pissed if I was Bryce. I didn't ask for this.
They are pissed because they have to keep bailing him out. Even with the Ocean Queen, Bryce had to be like, Therion serves me. In what capacity? I don't know.
Yeah, but now she's like, I didn't tell him to directly say, like, defy you. Please don't come after me for this.
It's like what the sprites did with the Viper Queen. Like, how many enemies are we going to just keep?
All of them.
All of them.
She'll kill you, Cinda says, but she'll have to breach the mist first, Therion counters.
Like we've said, Therion really solves his problems just by like adding to them and or moving them to a different location.
New area code.
As we'll find out, him being in the throne room is leading to a much bigger storyline, so he does need to be there.
And more rash decisions.
Ithan
and Jespa meet Hypaxia, who's now a full member of the House of Flame and Shadow in the morgue. Hypaxia approaches Sigrid's corpse with a sewing kit.
Ithan he's known for demanding things and then being shocked by those things. Like, he's like, she needs her head attached. And then he sees a sewing kit and he's like, what's that for?
What you doing?
Like, how did you think this was going to happen?
How do you think the head's going back on?
Did you think, because she's going to inject her with first light, did you think the head was from over here just going to...
like a magnet come flying back over?
Like, grow up.
On Avallen, Bryce, Hunt, Rune, Lydia, Deck, Flynn, and Therion are in King Morven's throne room.
Avallen, by the way, is very stuck in the past. Like, there are no skyscrapers, no cars, no electricity because there's no first light. So it's like Prythian, but it's way more depressing. Like, it's
very
just
oppressive.
Kind of, it's like, it's a vibe. Like, it's not just that it's kind of gray and dark there, but it's like a gray, dark vibe.
There also seems to be like no color. Like, if I was watching a movie, I would expect them to have like a green lens, like a green-gray lens on everything. It's just depressing and like, I don't know, downtrodden.
Yeah.
King Morven sits on a throne crafted from a single set of giant antlers.
And there aren't stags in Midgard that big, at least not anymore. So I don't know if that's saying that like there were stags at some point that like maybe the Asteri hunted to extinction, like the Thunderbirds, or are those stags from another world?
You mean like Terrasen?
Like Terrasen, I don't know.
Didn't they also have an antler throne in Terrasen?
I
I'm pretty
don't.
sure because it was like burned or like destroyed after they left.
Is
But
that Game of Thrones?
no, that's Sword Throne.
Oh,
But yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like a throne of antlers
yeah, I could see that. I can't
in
remember.
Terracin.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
have to
just
look this up because I
it's
forgot, but
just
I think
very
so.
specific that they're like, oh, those don't exist anymore, and you're like,
That's not something I've seen before. Yeah.
right.
It's not just anytime they point things out like that, usually with Sarah, it is an Easter egg.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of Thrones, and I know that we usually do book recs, but on the TV side, House of the Dragon is coming back for its second season on HBO in June. And if you like fantasy romance books, like you would love that show. Like I can't recommend it enough. We loved it. I loved it.
If you're okay with incest.
I mean, it's like incest light, It's we all
Uncles,
decided that
first
it was
cousins,
okay in this.
siblings.
The bloodlines need to be strong.
Feels like incest. But I mean, it's fine. But I do, obviously, we'll be watching it at my house.
I mean,
we'll have a party
obviously.
immediately. Even if you didn't watch or vibe with Game of Thrones, it can be watched as a standalone because it's happening before the events of Game of Thrones. So it's really kind of setting the stage.
Well, and it's like reading ACOTAR, Crescent City when you haven't read Throne of Glass. Like there are fun connections and there are things you might miss, but it's not mandatory.
Yeah.
And I was thinking maybe we should do like an episode where we just kind of recap like broad strokes season 1 before June. Like I think that would be kind of fun, something a little different.
We could try. There's a lot.
Well, we'd have to rewatch it, but we need to rewatch it anyway before the new season comes out in June.
Yeah, well, technically season 1 spans like 10 or 15 years, so
well, yeah, there's like
in there.
Half of it is like one set of actors, and then the second half is another. Yeah, and we didn't know how to feel about that at first because we really liked that first actress, but I ended up liking the second one too.
Yeah.
So if anybody would give a shit about that, send me a message on Instagram, just letting us know if you'd be interested in listening to a season 1 recap. Or if you wouldn't, I guess let us know too. Or if you would be, or like, please stop. That's fine too.
Fine.
And if you're wondering how everyone is related in this throne room, because I know some of it was talked about during the bonus chapters, especially with a character we're about to see again. But Morven is the maternal uncle of Rune's mother, Lauren, and that's a character we know next to nothing about. We don't know much about her. We speculated that it could be like Rhys's sister or someone from Prythian, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case.
Yeah. Morven's son was Cormac, who we met, fell in love with, and lost in House of Sky and Breath. Everyone is side-eyeing Therion, by the way. Like, thanks for adding Ocean Queen to our list of enemies.
They're all just seething, and he's just, like, smiling.
So happy to be here, like, bouncing around. Hunt tries to talk, but Morven's like, I will not be oppressed by a slave or anyone disgraced by the world.
And this is not his crowd. If he doesn't want to be with people who have been disowned, disgraced, or both, then
literally
he just
almost
needs
everybody there's a problem for you.
Yeah, they say to like raise your hand if you have been disowned, disgraced, or both. And the only ones not raising their hands are Deck and Flynn. But to the latter, he says it would be in your best interest to speak to me with respect.
Excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
Morven's sons, the murder twins,
What a name! Like what?
They walk into the room dragging Sathia, Flynn's sister, between them.
Sathia is a character, or Sathia? I don't know.
Shoot, I said it wrong.
Sathia, whatever. She's a character we barely know. She was mostly mentioned, and it's just briefly in the first 2 books, but I think the most we saw of her was in the Hunt and Bryce bonus chapter, because she's kind of eyeing Cormac. Like, she's asking Bryce, like, are you really engaged to him? Like, are you really going to marry him? Because she would love to marry a prince. So, in theory, this is a great situation for her, just based on what we know, like, surface level.
Yeah.
Because she came across very, like, she was a brat, like, she was a social climber.
Yeah.
And Flynn is not a big fan.
No. But one of the biggest themes in this series and all of Sarah's series is don't judge a book by its cover.
I have to talk about something that bothered me.
Okay.
And in ACOTAR, it took Feyre, like, how long? How many books? How much practice for her to learn to protect her mind from Daemati? Like, it was a pretty big plot point, you know?
Yeah.
And it's something that most people in Prythian never fully master, especially against someone like Rhys. But here, everyone just throws their shields up. Like, Therion throws his up, and it's water, and everyone immediately locks out the murder twins. Like it's nothing. Like it's not that
Even
big
Bryce,
of a
who
deal.
didn't really have much magic, like less than a year ago.
I know, and Bryce, hers is going to be Starlight, so I understand. But Therion, Rune, everyone immediately can just throw their shields up, and I don't know. It kind of bothered me how
It
easy it
doesn't
was.
make sense because these are people that don't even see battle or war. Like,
Mhm.
at least in Prithian, they've been fighting and had a very tough time of it for a while. So you'd expect them to be training with mental shields.
Well, it's even less common in
I mean, we joke
Midgard.
about these being the frat boys because although they work with the Ox, they're kind of just hanging out. So
When did
why were they practicing mental shields?
Yeah,
Not saying
exactly.
they shouldn't. It's just kind of unexpected and like a very quick response.
Well, and it's something that's so rare in Midgard. Why would they be practicing? You know?
Also, maybe I guess the Daemati gifts are weaker because of the parasite, so
It
it's
could be
easier to
that.
block.
But it's also the same with Nesta's battle to use the mask and not have it completely overtake her. I mean, it's a huge struggle. We just saw it back in Prithian in House of Flame and Shadow. And later on, I won't say who because we aren't there yet. But it's just like on off, no probs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It kind of bothers me.
Well, even in the same book to see it
Exactly.
behaving differently with different people is interesting.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I guess Sarah didn't have space for a training montage.
I know maybe that was like edited or cut out, and I won't keep bringing it up because like it's my problem. And I don't mind suspending belief, but it's a fantasy romance. You're going to have to suspend belief, but I can only do that within the rules of the world or the worlds that you've set up, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It just doesn't make as much sense
Like,
based on what's been going on for our characters
exactly.
or the
And
level of magic they have compared to Prithian.
exactly. And especially with who can, like, how easy or difficult it is to wear the mask, but also who can wear the mask. And that reasoning later on in this book also kind of bothered me.
We can probably go down a rabbit hole with that when we get to it.
Mm-hmm.
I also have some big opinions. But at best, it's a little bit annoying, and at worst, it diminishes the journey of some of the characters from other books, especially Feyre and Nesta, that had to work so hard to be able to use
Right. It was
these
like a
different gifts.
major part of their journey was struggling to understand, and it doesn't this kind of diminishes like, oh, I guess it wasn't that hard. Like, why did they have so much trouble with that?
Why do we read so long about Feyre struggling if it's this
Right.
easy?
Why was it so hard for her to
Everybody
keep
else can
people
do it.
out? Yeah. So I don't know. It's just something that I kept noticing because for each character, they have little moments of like, and then he threw his shield up, and then she threw her shield up, and they just keep going down the line. And I was like, everyone can do that.
I mean, the characters in this world, like I just said, but like they just feel more pampered than the characters in Prithian.
I'm like, Deck threw a shield up
generally
mentally
speaking,
and not like with a computer.
Yeah. Deck can do things outside of like on a computer. He has magic.
Yeah, does he? No, he has a little bit of healing magic, but
Yeah.
other than that,
it doesn't quite match up. It's just like a side thing they do in this story. And you're like, that was a whole like chapter or plot point for somebody else. So
yeah.
I don't know. Morven gave her an air quote choice between his sons. As a female, her only value. Oh, I just skipped over you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. King
We're talking
Morven
about Sathya.
explained that many of the Valbaran Fae can sense the unrest, and so they're kind of like flocking to Avallen to seek shelter, including Flynn's parents, Lord and Lady Hawthorne, but it comes at a price that Sathya is unwilling to pay. So a little surprisingly, based on what we know about her, but
well, I mean, you might be a social climber, but you probably have limits. I don't need to be brutalized. Thank you. But you know what? It doesn't seem to be a price her parents are unwilling to pay. Yeah, you can have her.
Yeah, exactly. I do need to know if the murder twins are hot, I guess, before I like make any decisions.
Kate. We're not marrying brutes just because they're pretty. Or they have a heavy cock or whatever. How did you describe
Don't put it in my face.
A heavy dick or whatever. Anyway.
No, it was heavy cock.
Okay. I just threw that word out there. I'm cringing at myself. But you know what? It's okay because Morven did give Sathya, quote, a choice between his sons.
Yeah, I mean, you can choose one of the twins. Because there's always like one twin that's cuter than the other one.
It's probably the one that's more brutal.
Probably.
I'm sure they'll both be involved anyway. As a female.
Do you think?
Well, maybe not sexually, but like I could see them ganging up to like beat her up.
Okay.
Because they like seem to play off each other's cruelty.
Yeah.
It's sad though, because as a female, Sathya's only value is to them is to marry her off and bear children.
Yeah.
So Sathya can either marry or go back to Lunathian.
And Flynn is really unsympathetic. He's like, just go back. But it's not safe in Lunathian because of what Flynn did with the big dungeon break. When they broke everyone out of the dungeon, the Asteri now want that family, like Flynn's family, for questioning.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a weird response from him. Like, you can have a sister that's a brat, but that doesn't mean you don't want to take care of her.
Well, and he
Keep her
also,
safe.
in that same bonus chapter that we talked about, where it was Hunt and Bryce bonus chapter in Sky and Breath, we saw an ugly side to Flynn because he was kind of like flirty with Bryce, but he was drunk and he meant it. It was kind of cruel, like it was in a cruel way.
Well, I think back at when we were referencing that, he knew that she had a crush on him growing up.
Exactly.
So you're going to rub that in and sleep with my best friend. And then it's just.
He's very immature.
He's got a lot of baggage he needs to sort through. I know. Is what I'm hearing.
Think that he could possibly be a big character in the next book? Like, do you think? Because I assume that it's going to be Therion and Ithan because it's just setting up so much for them storyline wise.
Don't feel like they've given him a lot of depth. Yeah. Or depth of character. So
I guess he could be the next one. Like if
they are going to do more, I hope they really like develop him. Because right now I don't know much about him.
With him. I don't care about much else right now.
That's kind of what they've given us with him. Mm-hmm. Unlike Deck and Therion, Flynn hasn't even considered what his actions could cost his family. Sad. No. Because Deck immediately starts to panic, but Sathya put in a call to warn his parents before she left.
And Flynn is shocked because I guess sees the absolute worst in his sister, and she's like, what? Like, I'm not a monster.
Well, we're literally fleeing. You don't think I would tell other people and warn them? Like, especially since you guys directly did something?
Right. He doesn't seem sorry.
It's just not great.
Right. Morven's two sons she can choose between, the murder twins, are named Seamus and Duncan. So either Sarah forgot that she named them Seamus and, how would you say that?
Derek?
Duroc?
It's D-A-R-R-A-G-H.
Duroc?
But since she's doing things like with a Celtic TH, doesn't that sometimes have like a sound?
Duroc. Seamus and Duroc.
Okay. That's getting worse.
So I guess Sarah forgot that she named them Seamus and Duroc in a Sky and Breath bonus chapter.
But Bryce and Co. aren't there to beg for asylum. She needs to access the archives in the Cave of the Princes, and she's not asking permission. It's her right as a Starborn. To further prove her point, she pulls out the Star Sword and the dagger.
And Morven is shook. He's like, what is that?
Where'd you get that?
Because it doesn't seem like he knows about the prophecy, like the Autumn, because the Autumn King is like, it's the dagger, like the dagger. And Morven's just kind of like, what is that?
He knows
there's
reading
like
your own
power
books
coming off of it, but
it's not like you can watch TV there. Have you not been through the archives?
And at least with the Autumn King, I do think that he is intelligent, and I don't get that vibe.
Morven's a bit more of a brute.
I mean, name Morven. But it's not like Morven is actually going to tell the Asteri, because he keeps threatening. He's like, well, maybe I'll tell the Asteri that you're here. And she's like, you'd have to open the mist. So go ahead, invite him over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not going to do that. But she does, just to kind of like sweeten the deal, give him, I don't think she does in the moment, give him the notebook from the Autumn King. Not like a copy of the Notebook the movie.
This is for you.
But she like kind of dangles it. Like, if you leave us the fuck alone, you can have all of his little private thoughts and Dear Diary moments.
I mean, she's assuming that they've kind of been rivals.
Exactly. She's assuming a lot.
You know what happens when you assume.
Exactly. And she dangles that, and she's like, by the way, Sathya is not marrying anyone, and she's coming with us.
He won't allow an unwed female to run around his island.
Can you imagine unwed women just
like
running around?
That whole thing, I'm like, wow. Taking charge, you mean? Getting shit done? Gosh, yeah, exactly. Hate that. Even if Flynn begrudgingly says he'll take responsibility for her. But
someone like kind of like elbows him and is like, I mean, like, fucking speak up. That's your sister.
Yeah, he has to be nudged to step up for his own sister. Bryce begins to let it go, but Lydia, who never had anyone to fight for her, makes her hesitate.
I was a little surprised that Bryce was like, we might have to let this one go, guys.
But then also, like, yeah, Lydia's right there unmarried too. So, like,
well, she's behind.
Right. Fair.
And during that moment of hesitation, Therion surprises everyone by being like, I'll marry her.
Wow.
Just, again, no thoughts only vibes from Captain Whatever.
You're totally stable, no baggage. You should probably step in and marry somebody, really saving her.
And Flynn kind of explains what marriage means to Faye, and it's not, you're not going to have a 10-year engagement. You're not going to be able to divorce because she would be completely shunned by the Fae. Like, you've just really stepped into something.
You are doing this now.
But congratulations, Captain and Mrs. Whatever. Wow. I do appreciate, though, that Therion, he's stepped up, and it seems like it's out of nowhere, but knowing his background and, like, he lost his sister. So I think in his mind, he sees his sister and would want someone to step up for her. And so it's very sweet.
I can respect that. I feel like, especially Therion and Ithan, their hearts are in the right place. Yes. There's just never any planning.
No thoughts.
But Therion's sister, Lesia,
I guess.
Lesia, we learned was murdered back in House of Earth and Blood. So again, anybody that could have protected her, I'm sure he would have wanted that support.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, you understand the, I guess, psychology behind it. But it's not going to be like a 10-year engagement. Like I just said, it's not going to be like Therion. He got away with that with the River Queen's daughter, but they're married 5 minutes later.
Yeah, there's no time to wait. This is happening now.
But the one trope we were missing from these books was arranged marriage. So Sarah provideth that.
Thank you, Sarah.
We had all the other box checked with the tropes, and now we have an arranged marriage.
We've been waiting for this one.
And we needed a real storyline for Therion if he was going to be the focus of the next book.
Yeah.
So
back in the House of Flame and Shadows morgue, it takes Hypaxia 7 hours, 7 minutes, and 7 seconds to raise Sigrid.
We really get it, Sarah.
7 is a very important holy number.
Well, and it's something we talked about in the first 2 deep dives. We were like, 7's really important, like a holy number. And now I'm like, okay.
That's a lot.
I get it.
Sigrid sits up, but isn't breathing, and opens her eyes, her acid green eyes.
She is a Reaper. This bitch she was already a bitch, and now she's a Reaper, and she is big mad at Ithan. Very mad. She is holding on to that grudge, even though she knows it was a fucking accident. Everyone knows it was an accident.
You were attacking him too.
Well,
why are you so mad?
It was, that whole thing was weird because the Viper Queen was like, "You're gonna fight." Ethan's like, "No," and she kind of just like jumped.
She attacked him.
She attacked with her claws. Like he was pulling punches and she was not.
She's just a sore loser.
The green light made me think about word marks though, because when they're activated, they kind of glow like either a bright turquoise or a green.
Yeah, that's definitely mentioned in Throne of Glass.
Yeah, I just wondered. And what we find out about the Underking later, I wonder if whatever he does to make the Reapers has something to do with that. But also Disney, I don't know if you've ever like watched the TikToks that compare when they show the Disney villains, they're always lit with green light or flame.
Yep.
Like that's how you kind of identify who is the villain. So I don't know if Sarah was inspired by that, but it did make me think like, okay, Siggy is fully like, she is in her villain era. She's the green light, like she's a villain now.
Yep. Plain and simple. Hypaxia explains that when she and Sigrid came to a doorway, the wolf wanted to go one way while the witch went another.
And that's when the Underking appears for the wolf turned Reaper, because now she belongs to him.
Good
and
Lord.
Apparently at the door, the Underking is like, well, do you want to be under Hypaxia's control or you can be free with me? But it's actually the other way around.
When you say free, that sounds great, but that's not really what I would be. I'm under your control then.
Right.
Poor Ithan. He starts screaming at Hypaxia to fix it.
Poor Hypaxia.
I feel like you both fixed it enough.
Like, he's screaming, fix it, but Siggy chose to become a Reaper. Like, what do you mean, fix it?
I mean, she's just giving you more examples of why she's not a good choice. And Ethan's like, no, I can't be in charge. You do it.
Yeah. It just... God. Yeah, he's blaming the wrong person. Like, again, like Siggy chose to be a Reaper. Why are you screaming at Hypaxia? There's nothing to fix.
I mean, Hypaxia thinks there might be a way to save her, but they'll need a Thunderbird.
And we just happen to know where the body of a Thunderbird, Sophie, is located.
And it just so happens to be where everyone else is right now. Avallen.
And that's where we'll pick up next week with chapters 50 through 55. Hopefully 56. I'm going to say 55 just to be safe, but we'll see.
We'll do our best. As always, send us thoughts, opinions, hot takes, questions, whatever, to at DTFA Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. and dtfapodcast@gmail.com.
And in addition to hot takes and opinions, send what you're going to buy at the Sephora sale next week, because I am highly influenceable and would love to hear what everybody's buying.
Yes, I need new things.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye, guys.